I'm about 5 hours into Final Fantasy XVI, and it's already become one of, if not my favorite game in the entire series. This game is about war, plain and simple, and the horrors that come from it. You see betrayal. You see people unalived. You see people get mauled, crushed, and axes to the face. It is one of the most jarring experiences I've ever had the pleasure of playing through. The first 2 hours, essentially the lead up to the title card, are some of the most jaw-dropping hours I've ever seen. After that title card dropped, I was literally speechless for about 10 minutes. I felt disgusted and unsettled by that opening. I mean, look at my face. This really should say it all. But with that being said, I can't stop playing it. I can't stop thinking about it. It claws at my brain and demands my attention. And if you're a fan of Final Fantasy, then it should demand your attention as well. Final Fantasy is different now. Final Fantasy is hitting harder than ever before, and you need to feel it to believe it. With that being said, I want to go over a few things that I really love about the new direction of the game, and some things that I wish were tweaked or just different. But beware. If you thought this was going to be a video about things that should be changed or how I don't like the new direction, you're sorely mistaken. Because everything I've played up to so far has been wonderful. It's been gritty. It's been in your face. And it's been absolutely captivating. I think that says it all. If you're interested in stuff like this, then check me out right here on YouTube, where I'll be posting more content about Final Fantasy XVI. Subscribe if you want to see more breakdowns and analysis of games like this. Let's get into the video. I want to start with the combat of the game. I really enjoy the way you have to approach combat. You're given a party that you have little to no control of, who act more as support than anything. They might take on 1 or 2 guys in the battlefield, while you focus on the remaining horde of enemies. It truly makes you feel like an unstoppable killing machine, just mowing enemies down. However, still feeling like a battle is happening all around you because your comrades are fighting in the background. I also really like the group fights in this game. A lot of games with multiple enemies do this really strange thing where the enemies, for some reason, come at you one at a time. In a game, if you're facing 10 enemies, generally it boils down to the encounter being 10 1v1 battles with enemies that don't take maybe more than 3 hits. Not this game. You will find yourself being double, triple, quadruple teamed by enemies all the time. I have yet to die in the game, humble brag, but I do find myself getting low on HP a lot because enemies will hit you from behind and hit you from range with spells. You'll never see it coming. Your lock-on is not good to be used all the time either. When you lock onto a target, you really focus in on that single enemy. Your field of view drops drastically. The camera gets much tighter on Clive and makes it really hard to see incoming attacks from the side and nigh on impossible from behind. It makes it so you need to focus on positioning and keep track of where you and your enemies are, making combat actually complex and very engaging. And complexity was something that Final Fantasy XV failed at completely. Final Fantasy XV, it was a good game, but the combat was as simple as holding circle and Noctis just did everything for you. Attacked, dodged, positioned, switched targets, everything. 16 has completely evolved that system and made it actually fun and much more engaging. Adding to the complexity, some enemies are larger, more fearsome foes. Think of them as bosses and or mini-bosses. The bigger foes have much bigger health bars, and a new bar we'll call the willpower bar. The yellow bar acts like a stance bar, per se. The goal is to whittle down the yellow bar, and that will stagger the opponent. While the enemy is staggered, They will be on the ground, unable to move, while you can sit there and unleash all of your most powerful attacks for free, all while dealing the game's version of crit damage, essentially a damage multiplier. It makes these fights actually something that you have to pay attention to, because they do not flinch, and they will poise through every single one of your attacks until they are brought down to 50% or they stagger for a few seconds, or completely lower the bar, which will leave the enemy staggered for about 10 seconds. So you can't just attack without thinking. Otherwise, you will be punished and possibly die. Not me, though. One of my favorite parts of the combat is the dodging and parry mechanic. Parrying is as it is in all games. You attack at the same time as your enemy, which triggers the parry, which lets you get a free 4-hit combo with increased damage to the will bar. I find that the parry happens more often by accident and is always a pleasant surprise as the game slows down for a more cinematic look and lets you get a flurry off. However, dodging is much more prevalent and probably what you'll be doing more of. Dodging is like in every game with a dodge. As the enemy is about to attack, you evade that attack by moving out of the way, you get some invincibility frames, and if you do it at the right time, you get the same slowdown effect as the parry, and lets you get off a small combo, doing extra damage to the will bar. You have no block, so dodging and parrying are all you have. It makes for very fun, very engaging, and best of all, very fast combat, which is something I personally really enjoy. To be honest, the only thing I don't really like about the combat is that the smaller enemies have a very long time to kill. They just seem very spongy, for no good reason. I'm not sure if that had something to do with my gear not being enough, or under-leveled, or if that's just the way the game is, but smaller enemies in a one-on-one are pretty boring all around, since you can basically knock them on their ass over and over and over again, leaving them just sitting ducks. It's kind of boring. They do throw in a few enemies that can actually guard, which completely nullifies all of your attacks from the front, except for your icon abilities and some learn smash abilities, just to kind of spice up the fighting. However, they still do not pose that much of a threat. Overall, the combat is really good, and it's really exciting, and I'm happy they have evolved into this style. It reminds me of Final Fantasy Type 0, which, despite its many shortcomings, was usually pretty interesting combat-wise. Which, speaking of Type 0, kind of brings me to my other point that I want to bring up today. I feel like I'm already seeing videos talking about how this isn't my Final Fantasy, and I'm already getting to the point where I'm mad about it. And I feel the need to defend Final Fantasy XVI from these people. Every single Final Fantasy is about some sort of war, some sort of conflict. People are killed for whatever reason, whether that be for power, revenge, whatever. And bad things happen to people all the time. This game is no different, aside from the fact that it gets a lot more guttural and a lot more visceral with its depictions of a war-torn country and how it treats the branded like slaves in this universe. I won't lie. Like I said in the intro into this video, the game is much darker and much grittier. I compare it to Berserk in a sense. Berserk is a very hyper-violent kind of anime/manga, and some people may really take to that style. Some will be completely put off by those visuals. However, because of those visuals, and because of the storytelling style, you have a much more intimate relationship with the main character, Guts in this sake. The reason people who read/watch Berserk continue to do so, despite all the atrocities, is because it's not senseless violence for violence sake. The same can be said for Final Fantasy XVI. Minor spoilers if you haven't played the first 2 hours of the game, so please skip to this number, timestamp, whatever. 3, 2, 1. When you go through the Ifrit Phoenix fight, and you experience that moment where Ifrit is on top of Phoenix, essentially mauling this bird. Clive, mauling his brother Joshua, the one who is sick, the one who you were sworn to protect, the one that you, the player, become attached to through subtle but major ways. It's truly guttural, seeing how bestial Ifrit is slicing into Phoenix as the bird just caws in pain. You hear every single blow, every single knife-like claw piercing in and out of the Phoenix. And then the screen goes black. But you continue to hear the massacre that is happening. There's nothing you can do to stop this. There's nothing you can do to change the outcome. All you can do is sit and watch and listen to the death of this character that you have come to care about. And then it cuts in to Clive's POV, having an out-of-body experience as he helplessly watches his brother being killed, and his brother cries out for him to help. Just as Clive has to witness all of the bloodshed and death, we the player are also there through Clive's POV, feeling exactly what Clive is feeling. This moment is not violent for violence sake. This is violence to put you in Clive's shoes and understand him and his motivations and his pain that much more. Just as you root for Guts in Berserk because you've literally been with him for the entire story and felt and saw exactly what he felt and saw, the same is true for Clive. You're all good now. We can. This is where you cut to. Spoilers over. The violence is important to the storytelling, and I think this was a very brave and very exciting direction for Final Fantasy to take. However, this does have its caveat. As much as this is lining up to be one of my favorite games in the series, I don't think I could ever recommend this game as anyone's first Final Fantasy. This game is currently the black sheep of the Final Fantasy name, and that's not a bad thing. Final Fantasy 13. Ugh, excuse me. I think it's just the very nature of the game and the way it depicts its story to the player. This is a game that you should have your feet wet, maybe up to your waist in other Final Fantasies before you ever consider getting into this actual horrifying yet captivating story. That way, you can truly appreciate what came before and understand and appreciate Final Fantasy 16 for what it has done and for what the series is possibly progressing towards. Listen, I don't want to make a huge long video going over my first impressions. It's taking time away from actually playing the game, and I don't want to do that anymore. So I think I'm going to end the video right here. I love this game. I love this game so far. I am excited to keep playing, but I just wanted to address the two biggest changes from the past Final Fantasies because everything else is good, of course. I didn't mention the music, which is absolutely amazing, by the way, or the characters, because I want to do a more in-depth look at all of them, especially Clive, and especially a certain man with a deep, raspy voice that I feel will have lots of fanfics and corn made of him. But, you know, all the characters so far I love. The villains are great. The protagonists are great. Everything about this game is just great. I just wanted to talk about those two main points. If you are looking forward to more content like this, and you want someone with a little bit more of an amateur approach to videos, please subscribe. You know, it really helps out. And if you want to like the video, it helps me out a lot. I don't know, the algorithm it's algorithm hell. Anything you can do help. Also, I do love discussing topics like this. So if you made it this far into the video, you obviously have some interest in it too. And I'd love to hear some of your comments. What are your first impressions of the game? Did you love the new direction, or is it not really your cup of tea? Please leave it all in the comments, and I'll probably be responding to all of them. I tend to do that. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Probably after I've beaten this masterpiece. Oh. I just saw in my notes. I did write down one complaint. Let me just... I can't believe I forgot to mention this, but, why the hell do some people have super common names? Why the hell is there a Tyler in my Final Fantasy? That is the most un-Final Fantasy thing I have ever seen since this guy was introduced into Final Fantasy 15. I'm so confused. You get names like Kupka and Benedicta, but then you get Tyler and Wade? Why couldn't these guys be named Biggs and Wedge? That's literally what I thought when I saw them. Look at this clip. Look it. I can literally say it. Is that me? Is that me?
We're ready to depart, my lord.
Is this Biggs and Wedge? Who are these guys?
Sir Tyler.
Damn.
Let us do our duty.
With pleasure, my lord.
What are these names?
To the marshes, then.
Tyler?
And may the blessing of the crystals go with us.
Who chose these names? Like, why is this like... This is like America. Man, screw this game. 0 out of 10, don't play. You might have to party with a guy named John Smith. Jesus.